Nostradamus and the Third Antichrist. This will only be the prophecy that's given at the end of the book, and it's published by Watkins Publishing, London. Mario Redding is the author. Part 3: The Third Antichrist, the one still to come. Peace reigns over the earth. Date 2063. Nostradamus index date is 63. The century number is 1. With the plague over, the earth shrinks. Peace will reign for a good while. People will travel through the sky like birds and by sea and wave before war once again is called for. Prediction. Following the terrible epidemic described in 2/62, which is 2062, worldwide epidemic, which has decimated the world population, things will return to normal for a while. There will be peace. Travel will recommence. The word "sari" in line 3 is of particular interest here because in Old French it means the talon of a bird, giving an image of people traveling through the air as if carried by a hawk. One trusts it's not invidious to remind readers at this point that there was no such concept as air travel in Nostradamus' time. Here he has simply taken it for granted as if his visions had vouchsafed him a sight of the future which he accepted completely as if it were an everyday matter. The war in line 4, of course, is the global war due in 2070, and which he warns us about yet again in 10/69, which would be 2069. It is interesting to note that in both this quatrain and in 10/69, Nostradamus uses the word sior, meaning sior, by the sweat of one's brow. The juxtaposition of that word with sari, the talon of a bird, is undoubtedly intentional and implies human rather than godlike will and our mastering of the elements. Summary. The Earth's population has drastically shrunk thanks to the worldwide epidemic of 2062. There is a period of calm and harmony in the world, possibly as a result of collective shock. To be fair, this quatrain could also go for the end of the First World War and the Second World War, so don't know how this fits in. England and Scotland fall out over the EU. Date 2066. Nostradamus' index date is 66. Century number is 10. London's Prime Minister, ruled by America, will freeze out the Scottish enclave. The Rob Roys will pick themselves so false an antichrist that they will all be thrown into the mix. Prediction. This quatrain is significant for the fact that it specifically mentions the word Antichrist in line 3, suggesting a pluralism rather than merely a singularity of Antichrist, thus reinforcing Nostradamus' concept of a trinity, ergo 6 plus 6 plus 6. The conflict to which it refers apparently stems from England's secession from the EU. See quatrain 860, which would be 2060 in The Complete Prophecies of Nostradamus, and the schism this creates with Scotland, which resolves to remain inside the community. England will align itself with its old ally, the United States, while Scotland will align itself with its old ally, France. Rob Roy, of course, was the nickname of Robert McGregor, an amiable rogue and a splendid swordsman who assumed his mother's name of Campbell when his clan was outlawed by the Scottish Parliament of 1662. It didn't take him very long to become Scotland's equivalent of England's Robin Hood, though, and he only evaded transportation to Barbados by a whisker. This time, the Scottish Rob Roys will find that the ally they have picked for themselves is full of perfidy and leaking with ulterior motives. Is it any coincidence that the index number of this quatrain, 1066-2066, also coincides with the 1,000-year anniversary of the Norman Conquest? Summary. Scotland and England disagree profoundly over Scotland's membership of the European Union. England sides with the United States over matters of trade, while Scotland sides with France. This is one of the reasons why I actually wanted to read this book. Although it is not 2066 yet, in 2016, they did have that vote, and obviously there was a break with the EU, and Scotland does decide that they want to stay there. We don't know how this works out yet. We also know that Trump, who is now the president, also grabbed that in. Now, I don't know how that plays out. I don't know if that's part of this. I'm just pointing that out, that although it's not 2066, 2016 comes pretty close. Anyway, take it for what it's worth. A slight aside here, though. It does also mention that Scotland will end up being betrayed by the Antichrist. Now, since Scotland is going to be the one that is staying within the European Union, that would assume, if it is correct, that it's not Trump who is the Antichrist, but someone in Europe. So, just kind of pointing that out. But again, this is just a what-if scenario. We don't know if any of this has anything to do with anything besides just wishful thinking. Or maybe horror thinking. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Warnings of global war. Date 2069. Nostradamus index is 69. Century number is 10. The shining deed of the newly elected leader will be blown south by the great northern wind. Great halls are raised by his own sweat. Fleeing, he is killed at the bushes of Ambalon. Prediction. A precursor to the global war scenario laid out in 5/70, 9/70, 10/70, 8/70, and 3/71, the index date is right, and other clues lead us towards such a supposition, most notably the symbol of the northern wind blowing south. Most commentators have always taken Seor in line 3 to mean Soer, or sister, but it is much more likely it taken as an ideogram to mean suor, sweat. The bushes of Ambalon remain a mystery. There is a clue, however. Bellona, wife of Mars, was the Roman goddess of war, and temples, great halls, were traditionally built to her when war was in the offing. In classical literature, too, Bellona soon began to be linked to the moon goddess of Asia. Sometime following the Mithridatic Wars, the beaten Mithridates, of course not wishing to fall into the hands of his enemies, found that he had so fortified himself with antidotes against poisoning by others that he was unable to poison himself, and was finally forced to get a slave to stab him. Summary. There are rumblings of war despite the placatory efforts of a newly elected leader. I want to be careful here because I'm taking this assumption that this is the time period we're in. The shining deed of the newly elected leader, I'd like to think that would be Trump, but it could also be, since we were talking about Britain, it could be the last election where this did become the reality, and then Britain called for a new election, which ended up going in favor of the European Union. So when it says the northern wind would blow south, that could be means that this could be like part of that. The great halls are raised by his own sweat. That I kind of think could have something to do with Trump, who is definitely doing as much as he can to become a lightning rod for a lot of things. Fleeing, he is killed at the bushes of Ambalon. That one I don't know, but considering how much Trump has made himself a lightning rod, the ideal of him being assassinated is not exactly something that I would be surprised to find out about. Another thing, considering my last comment was about it being 2016 when the actual election was done, in this case it's 2069. If we're to go by the same assumption, then could it be 2019 is when this warning of global war takes effect? An asteroid strikes the Earth. Date 2069. Nostradamus index date 69, century number 1. The great mountain, 7 stades around. After peace, war, hunger, flood will roll far destroying great swaths of country, even antiquities and mighty foundations. Prediction. This is an odd quatrain, which seemingly splits into two because line 2 strikes 1 as being a forerunner of the coming Antichrist engendered global war, while lines 1, 3, and 4 describe a precipitating event. Such premonitory events abound in the Bible and in history, and Nostradamus is clearly using a similar conceit here, along the lines, say, of the appearance of Halley's Comet on the 24th of November, 1066, which prefaced the 14th of October, 1066, Battle of Hastings, and which is clearly delineated on the famous Bow Tapestry. These men wonder at the star, in which Harold of England is seen received news of the comet with fear in his eyes. A stade was a unit of measurement equivalent to about 180 meters, so a mountain 7 stades around would measure 1,260 meters in circumference, or 1,377.93 yards. One presumes that Nostradamus is talking about an asteroid strike here, for we know that a 1 km asteroid traveling at circa 30 kilometers per second would have a huge impact on all terrestrial life. Tsunamis would be triggered rising to about 300 to 800 meters above sea level. Firestorms and dust storms would circumnavigate the globe, blotting out the sun for 1 to 2 years and disrupting food chains and breeding cycles. We can expect one such asteroid strike roughly once every 100,000 years, and Nostradamus would seem to be indicating the year 2069 as a possible strike date. Summary. Nostradamus predicts an asteroid strike in 2069 and describes the likely consequence. It is clear from the quatrain that he sees this as a premonitory of even for the global war of 2070. Continuing with my further thoughts, 2069 could also be 2019 if my thinking is correct. Also, it does not say that it is an asteroid strike. It says a great mountain 7 stades round, but it doesn't say it hits anywhere. So it's very possible what it could be referring to is a mountain, period, that a war takes place around, some kind of an event takes place around. Now, there's a lot of places that there's a big problem going on right now. You've got Syria, you've got Turkey, where it's believed that, the Ark is at. You've got the Caucasus Mountains in that range. There's obviously a lot of places where antiquities and mighty foundations would be destroyed. So we'll have to see on that one. But my guess would be is if we're going along with this normal narrative, that it's likely to be somewhere in the Caucasus regions. So what that could be, I am not sure. But maybe the Ukraine could blow up in some way. Or Turkey, which is also having some problems of its own. It just depends. I still think that Putin is a bigger threat to us as far as his thinking goes, even though ISIS is more of a Nazi-type operation with fanatics involved. Other mountain ranges fit the 1,260. However, this one, due to Natali in Alba County, Bukium, at 1,258 meters, is 2 ranges. One is Goala and then Flakasa. The reason why I think this could be the one is, one, it's right in the region where between the Ukraine, where Russia is now involved in, and Serbia, which, in my opinion, is the reason why the anonymity between Putin and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton exists in the first place, which is the war that happened, the air war in Montenegro. I can go into more detail if you'd like, but that's my basis for why I picked this place out. But I do admit there are other places, one that's actually in China. I'm only going with this because that's along with my thought pattern. The Detonatali, a unique natural reservation of basalt columns. Detonatali means granite columns. They are in Transylvania. They are a national reservation located in Bethlehem, Alba County. Detonatali means stroke by lightning. Are two peaks that stand out thanks to the hexagonal prism-shaped granite basalt columns, 1,258 meters tall. The two peaks are called Detonata Gola and Detonata Flacasa, with an area of question 24 hectares, belonging to the Metaleferi Mountains. Detonatala are one of the major tourist attractions in the region. The two rocks are located 1.5 kilometers apart from each other. Detonatala Gala, scarcely covered in vegetation, and Detonatala Flacasa, with lots of vegetation, have the form of humps located near the village Buckium. Detonatala are some columns of basalt of a stunning regularity, resembling to some huge natural pipe organs which we could admire in the Apusini Mountains. The term comes from the name of the group of rocks composed of basalt columns, uncoated with vegetation and mixed with scree from the solid rockfall, causing a noise similar to thunder. Unique in Europe, they remember of giants and fairy tales. Locals tell that long time ago between Detonata Goala, which is 1,168 meters, and Detonata Flacasa, which is 1,265 meters, there was a fairy tale, a forbidden love. Thus they were punished and transformed into stones forever. Another legend says that at the beginning there was only a giant stone. On a hot summer day, during a severe thunderstorm, a lightning split the massive in two different forms, culminating with the two Detonati. Another legend speaks of a greedy king with an incommensurable wealth hidden under the stone, so the rivers won't find it. After hundreds of years, the devil was found out about the hidden treasure under the stone and began digging, eager to get rich. Furious because he didn't find anything with a lightning, he suddenly split the stone in two formations, which is visible today. Being stated for the first time in 1936, Detonata Goala, it's a natural geologic reservation and a tourist attraction of great interest due to these prismatic columns that are to be found in very few places around the world. Clearly, other places would fit just as fine. However, this is going along with what I've been reading here and my own personal knowledge of the problems with Putin, the fact that the main argument is about Ukraine, the fact that Clinton started an air war using NATO as cover, the fact that it directly led to Putin becoming into his job, basically unseating Boris Yeltsin, who had warned Clinton that he could not support an attack on Serbia at that time, and we ignored it. Now, the other thing I want to point out is this is an area that has been created specifically to get money from the Eastern European Union, or from the European Union. It's been created as sort of like a park for that, and that is located in the information that is shared in picture form, but I am not going to read it for it right now. Anyway, so that's why I think this could be a good area to be looking at. I do not know for sure if this means anything. It's just a what-if scenario. Take it for whatever you think it is. But I do believe Putin is a far greater danger as a person, like Hitler. However, as I've said before, ISIS to me seems a lot more like the Nazi Party. Their fanaticism, their willingness to go to the extreme of cutting heads off and exterminating people that disagree with them. I don't see Russian people in that regard. I see Putin, however, as like Hitler, and that's why he is the one that I worry about the most, even though he doesn't yet have the fanaticism of groups like ISIS does. I am interested in your comments, so if you'd like to share, that's great. This is not a well fleshed out idea. I'm just going on the fly. I just thought I would try and find a mountain range or a mountain that could support a theory that I've got, and this is one of them. This is more of an exercise than an actual attempt to prophecy, since I'm not going to try to even prophecy. I don't know if this is all fantasy or what. But it's something that could be true. It could also be a bunch of junk. So take it for what it is, and like I said, I would love to hear your comments. Thank you.